Continuing our effort to define cybersecurity, we can also talk about how cybersecurity is a business problem. All businesses that are connected to the internet should be concerned about cybersecurity. If the business is not concerned about cybersecurity, you shouldn't use your credit card there. You shouldn't use your debit card there. You should not give them any of your information that is stored electronically. Businesses need to be concerned about cybersecurity because of all of the range of consequences that come along with security breaches, whether they're legal consequences or losing business or losing faith in the business among the stockholders or the potential customers or whatever it may be. Cybersecurity is a business problem. And as we talk about it as a business problem, you'll hear more in this class about concepts called outside threat and inside threat, or outsider and insider threats. Now, the outsider threat refers to situations where someone from outside the business who doesn't work with the business is trying to steal data or otherwise alter or limit the data that the business has. This can be devastating for a business, and we'll talk about all sorts of reasons that outsiders might engage in these behaviors. But the simple fact is there are many, many people who do want to harm businesses and their data. Now, many, many people may be overstating it a little bit. The vast majority of us don't want to commit a cyber offense or a cybersecurity incident. But even when we don't want to commit a cybersecurity incident, that doesn't mean that we don't sometimes goof. And that's the insider threat. And the insider threat exists on two levels, and you'll hear all about this later in this class. On one level, it's when some of us goof and just make a mistake, and then suddenly put the entire cyber infrastructure of a business at risk. Those errors can create all sorts of problems for businesses. So that good businesses will do many, many things to try and stop their employees from making mistakes that put their systems at risk. Insider threat also, though, includes times when workers actually intentionally try and harm their company or their business. And you'll hear a lot about what's called white-collar cybercrime. And those simply refer to instances where people who work in a job steal from that job or commit crime on that job through the use of cyber technology. So certainly cybersecurity is a business problem, and it's a business problem that businesses need to be concerned with if they want to have a successful business. Cybersecurity is also a privacy issue. You know, I remember back when I was in school, if we liked someone, we'd write them a note. Do you like me? Yes or no? Circle one. You say yes, no. You'd always throw in maybe, because you'd take a maybe over a yes or no any day of the week. I'd take a maybe over a no. You'd want that yes. Now here's the thing. I'd write that down, I'd bumble it up, and I'd toss it to someone. I have no idea where those communications are. Today, anything we put out electronically is forever. You hear of instances now where people who tweeted something 10 years ago or placed something online, and it was a foolish thing to say, but it's coming back to harm them. Now, if we take that to another level, anything you put out there, someone else gets access to, and someone else would have unlimited access to that data for a long period of time. There's all sorts of implications that arise from that. And when we think about these implications, Businesses can get information from you. So every time you go to a business and they say, use our card and every eighth thing you get for free, we're going to be able to keep track of when you're eating, what you're eating, how much you're eating. Now, maybe you're okay with that, and maybe it probably is okay to be okay with that. But think of all the other implications that would come up with that. We'll talk later about instances where questions about whether businesses should be able to, if they know that I like this particular brand and I happen to walk into a mall that sells that brand and they have my technology and I allow my tracking device to show where I am, could they suddenly then send me an advertisement that says, hey, why don't you come to this store and buy this particular product? They're following me. What are the implications with that? What are the ethical issues with that? Now, beyond these types of issues, there are also questions about whether or not the amount of information we put out there about ourselves, when we talk about the privacy issue, whether or not that places us at risk for different types of cyber harms. The primary reason we have our cybersecurity students do e-portfolios is so that you'll learn how to integrate the material from across your courses. This is so critical in an interdisciplinary type of program like we have at Old Dominion University. But another reason why we do it is because you are in control of your digital identity. What people see about you online is up to you. How we control that information is incredibly important. Beyond that, the type of electronic data that people get about us is very telling and can have so many unexpected consequences that we probably haven't even begun to think about. So cybersecurity is most certainly, most absolutely certainly a privacy issue. One of the things we'll want you to do for your free write, either before or after this particular module, is to Google yourself and to write about everything people would learn about you. Now, if you don't want to do it about yourself, which I think really we should do so we're aware of our digital identity, pick another name. Just randomly pick someone and see everything you can learn about that particular person. And as you do that and think about that, it's going to become so crystal clear to you that cybersecurity is also an individual concern. It's an individual concern because of all of the information that folks would have about us. But it's also an individual concern because while businesses are being attacked in cyberspace, individuals are also being attacked in cyberspace. There's enormous risk for victimization, whether it's for viruses or other types of malware, or cyber fraud has grown, and we'll talk about the numerous types of cyber fraud later, and cyberbullying and how that transpires. And while it's typically thought about as being something that targets young people, it also happens with older people throughout our life course. We'll also recognize that there are enormous consequences for individuals who experience cyber harm or cybersecurity incidents. There are consequences on the personal level with cyberbullying, for example, and the ability to interact with others. And we know that there's a large amount of research that looks at how males and females might experience a victimization differently, how different ages might experience victimization. But there's also personal consequences from all the other types of cyber harms that we're going to talk about. There's also financial consequences. If someone's a victim of cyber fraud and the various types of cyber fraud, if someone has to spend money to fix their computer system, which has been targeted, my son was all proud one day because he was using my computer and a message popped up that said, your computer has a problem, click here and it'll fix it. And he clicked there, and before I could do anything about it, I had to buy a new computer. It cost me some money. It was an expensive lesson for my son, but it was a financial consequence I experienced. There's also physical consequences from cybersecurity, believe it or not. We typically think of these incidents as being financially driven, but anytime there's a financial consequence for an individual or an emotional consequence, there is most certainly also a physical consequence that goes along with it. And people lose a lot of time dealing with cybersecurity incidents. So for these reasons, cybersecurity is an individual concern. Cybersecurity is also a possible business. It's a possible business for you. If you're looking at developing your own business, there are many opportunities for these businesses, and you'll hear a lot about these businesses later in a couple of different modules, actually, because we think it's so important to look at cybersecurity through this lens. There's actually a class we teach. Students could select it instead of an internship. It's called Entrepreneurship in Cybersecurity. And what this Entrepreneurship in Cybersecurity course focuses on is getting students to actually think about how they would develop their own cybersecurity business. It could be in cyber operations or in consulting or training or products or sales or commercialization or a number of different areas, but we'll come back to these topics. For now, just recognize that cybersecurity is a possible business for those entrepreneurs out there looking to develop a particular business. Cybersecurity is also a career. In fact, it's one of the fastest growing careers in our country. Cyberseek.org, we'll refer to this website a couple of times in our modules, has so much information about jobs that are out there. And this was a recent snapshot. And you could actually drill down into different cities and different parts of the U.S. And they show how many job openings there are. They show how many currently employed people there are in the workforce. And this cyberseek.org dives into the types of information that students would want to know to get into these careers and these jobs, the types of certificates that students might need, the types of experiences they might need, the types of competencies. And so I would encourage you at some point, find the time to go to this website and just search around on it, and you'll see the numerous opportunities that exist for cybersecurity careers. You've seen this slide before. Cybersecurity, it's an ODU course. It's a course you're taking now, Cybersecurity, Technology, and Society. And what we talk about is how we bring together these concepts, this knowledge from information technology, the knowledge from business, the knowledge from engineering and computer science and criminal justice and philosophy, and how we bring those principles together to actually define cybersecurity in an interdisciplinary way, in a way that brings together these frameworks and helps us to more fully understand the numerous types of issues on an individual level, on a personal level, on a societal level, on a business level, how these issues arise and how we bring together these different levels, from our societal systems to our individual systems and our educational systems and our systems in our business world, and how we bring those together to more fully respond to cybersecurity. Now, our cybersecurity majors, a couple of courses they're going to take in addition to this particular class, which some of you are taking as a gen ed class and some of you for your cybersecurity major. Our majors are also going to learn how to write in an interdisciplinary way later in one of their classes. They're going to submit a final e-portfolio for a course, and they're also going to do an internship or an entrepreneurship. And when they do these things, they're going to be done in an interdisciplinary way that embraces these ideals of these multiple disciplines.